Hi everyone. Welcome to this video on how to perform selection in a Syncfusion Blazor Gantt chart. In this video, I will show you how to enable or disable selection at initial load, programmatic selection, multiple row selection, and toggling. Also, I will show you how to get the selected row indexes and records, perform selection on cells, and how to disable selection for a particular record. Finally, I will explain how to clear all the selection at runtime in the Gantt chart. Let's dive right in. I am using an existing Blazor WebAssembly app. In this project, I have already configured a Gantt chart with data. I have added a class named TaskData with fields such as Task ID, Task Name, Start Date, End Date, Duration, Progress, and Parent ID. I have created a list of task data using the onInitialized method. In the Gantt Task Fields tag, I have defined the properties to display the task data. Using the Gantt Columns tag, I defined the fields to show some fields in the tree grid. To know how to bind data to the Syncfusion Blazor Gantt chart component, please watch the video titled Binding List Data and Service URLs to the Blazor Gantt chart, which I have shared in the YouTube card. Now, I run the project. You can see the Gantt chart with task data bound to it. Let me select a row. You can notice that the row selection is enabled by default in Gantt chart. Also, you can set the selection mode to cell. First, let me show you row-based selection in the Gantt chart. Generally, you can enable or disable selection in Gantt chart using the property Allow Selection. Let me disable selection now. Save the file and run the application. Click on a row to select it. You can notice selection was disabled. Now, let me show you how to select a row on initial load. In the SF Gantt, add the selected row index property and set the value 3, so that it selects the fourth record in the tree grid. Set the Allow Selection property to True. Run the application. You can notice the third row index, that is the fourth record, has been selected in the tree grid on initial load of the component. You can also select a row programmatically at runtime. Let me select a row while clicking on a button component. So, add a button component, provide the value as select row. Add onClick event and set a method name. In the code section, implement the select row method. Within the method, use the Gantt object and call the select row async method and pass the row index value 2. This will select the third record in the tree grid. Remove the selected row index property since it is out of this scope. Run the application. Click the select row button. It selects the record of row index 2 in the tree grid. Also, you can select multiple rows programmatically. To achieve it, in the SF Gantt, add the Gantt selection settings tag and set the type as multiple. The default value is single. Let me select 3 rows while clicking on a button component. So, add a button component, provide the value as select rows. Add onClick event and set a method name. In the code section, implement the select rows method. Within the method, use the Gantt object and call the select rows async method and pass an array of double values. These row indexed records will be selected once the method is called. Run the application. Click the select rows button. It selects the records of row indexes 1, 2, and 3 in the tree grid. You can select multiple rows dynamically at runtime. To do it, click on a row and then press the Control key and select another row and so on. Also, I can perform continuous selection using Shift key. You can notice that I cannot toggle the selection. By default, toggling is disabled in the Gantt chart. To enable toggle, in the Gantt selection settings tag, add the Enable toggle and set the value True. Run the application. Select multiple rows, now click on any of the selected rows. I can toggle the selection. Next, let me show you how to get the selected row indexes and records at runtime. Add a button component and set the content as getSelectedData. Add onClick event and set a method name. In the code section, implement the getSelectedData method. Within it, define a variable and assign the Gantt object's getSelectedRowIndexes async method. Convert the result to a list so that you can see the selected index values. To get the selected records, define a variable and call the Gantt's getSelectedRecords async method and convert the result to a list. Keep a breakpoint so that you can see the outcome. Now run the application. Click on the Select Rows button. It selects the records of row indexes 1, 2, and 3 in the tree grid. Click the Get Selected Data button. You can notice the breakpoint hits the method. I hover over the selected row indexes object. It shows the selected indexes as 1, 2, and 3 as expected. In the same way, the selected records object resulted the same 3 records. During the row selection action, the Gantt chart component triggers events like row selecting, row selected. While deselecting, it triggers row deselecting and row deselect. Let me explain the row selected event now. The row selected event triggers for each record after the selection is completed. To access the event, in the SF Gantt, add the Gantt events tag, and add the row selected event, and set a callback name. You need to set the t-value type as task data, so that the Gantt events can understand its type. Implement the callback method row selected, receiving the parameter of type row selected event args of type task data. Within it, define a variable to store the argument's data property. Place a breakpoint so that you can watch the result here. Now run the application. I am selecting the first record in the tree grid. The breakpoint hits the method. I hover over the selected row data object. It shows the selected record values. As I said earlier in this video, the Gantt chart also supports cell selection. To achieve cell selection, in the Gantt selection settings tag, add the mode property and set the value to cell. Run the application. Click on a cell, you can notice the selection is performed on that cell alone. Since I have already enabled the multiple selection option, I can select multiple cells. Also, you can toggle cells since the enable toggle property is set to true already. The cell selection triggers events like cell selecting, cell selected, and while deselecting a cell it triggers cell deselecting and cell deselect events. Let me show you how to disable selection for a particular record using the cell selecting event. In the Gantt events tag, add the cell selecting event and set a callback name. Implement the callback method cell selecting, receiving the parameter of type cell selecting event args of type task data. Within it, check a condition whether the selected data's task ID is 2. If so, set the args cancel property to true, so that whenever you perform selection on any cell of task ID 2, it will cancel the selection. Now run the application. I am selecting the first cell in the tree grid, selection is performed on it. When I select the cells in the ID 2, the selection is not performed due to our condition in the cell selecting event. Next, let me show you how to clear selection at runtime when I click on a button. Add a button, set the display text as clear selection. Set the onClick method name as clear selection. Implement the method clear selection. Within it, call the Gantt chart's clear selection async method. This will clear all the selected rows or cells in the Gantt. Save the file and run the application. Select multiple cells. Click on the Clear Selection button, you can notice the existing selections were cleared. That's it. You can download this working example from the GitHub link in the video description below. You can also check if you're eligible for our community license, which gives you a free license key to use our Blazor products. If you found this video useful, click the like button and subscribe to our channel to get notifications about new videos. Thanks for watching.